But save that for afterwards and see if it's really worth it. But welcome to what I call Danish Research 101. And I need to offer a disclaimer right at first. I do not speak Danish. I can read essential words, and I have learned, it was a very painful process to begin with, how to do basic research. So be encouraged rather than discouraged. And let me show you some experience that I have gleaned over the years in doing Danish research. This is a painting that hangs in the National Art Gallery in Copenhagen. It's called, as the title says, The Mormon Preachers. And it was painted in 1856. And the first missionaries arrived in 1850. So you can see the great impact they had on Danish society. And this man, Christian Dalsgaard, painted the Danish peasant. And no doubt, this is the way your ancestor heard about the gospel. For the first 20 years in Denmark, there were probably an average of 4 a year, what they called missionaries from Zion. These were elders from Utah with a Danish background who went to Denmark. They would pair themselves with a local convert, maybe call that convert on a mission, and make a circuit of teaching and preaching. So this man dressed in the blue jacket, he is the elder from Israel. And this older gentleman in the background, this is the Danish convert. They're teaching this carpenter and his family. And the reaction you have of the individuals in this picture typify the way we find even today people reacting to the gospel message. This is the carpenter reading a tract. It's not the Book of Mormon. They didn't have the luxury of having a lot of Book of Mormons. They had tracts with excerpts and some of the revelations and some sermons of the early church leaders, and then the strength of their testimony for conversion. So this is the carpenter, the head of the household, looking at the tract. His expression may be one of more amusement than curiosity. This is the older gentleman who is listening, maybe critically, but certainly intent. This girl is blind, or woman is blind, directing her whole attention to the words of the missionary. This is a servant girl outside. She wants to listen, but she's a little timid, whether she doesn't want them to know she's listening or anyone else to listen, or whether she can make her judgment on her own. This is the lady of the house. She's all busy with her own tasks and doesn't have time for this. And this servant girl is boldly standing, neglecting her work and listening to the message of the elder from Zion. Perhaps this is the way your peasant ancestor either helped spread the gospel or received it. So today we're going to talk about basic Danish research. The types of records available to us on the internet and free are the parish records and the census records. Then you usually need to write to somebody or talk to somebody, and your other options are the probate records, military records, and the era of our great-grandparents. Boys were registered at the age of 2. They stayed on the military rolls until they were drafted, died, became too old, or perhaps disabled, something like that. But this is a help in following if they move. Tax records, immigration records, land. This is a farming country, and the land was at first in large estates. The estates were owned by the church, by the government, the crown, or the wealthy landowner. There are individual farms. First, these are tenant farms, and then they are owned individually as they began to break up the big estates. On the estates, there are the tenant registers, the list of all of the farmers and which farm they were on. There are tenant letters, which are contracts, which was certainly in favor of the estate owner, not the peasant, and gives his term of labor. If he produces X amount for the estate above and beyond what he can use, then he has the right to work the land. If not, he'll be booted out. Archives. There are great local archives. These parishes are very proud of their heritage and have volunteers that staff their local parishes and take good care of their records and try to add to them and catalog them. Regional archives on Ueland and on Sjælland, and the big national archive where they finally collected all of the records is in Copenhagen. We have another source in the LDS Scandinavian mission records, marvelous records, complete records, detailed records. They're in Salt Lake City on fiche, and I do believe they are also on microfilm. This gives the name of the convert, when he was baptized, where he was born, when he emigrated, all kinds of wonderful details. There is a book, History of the Scandinavian Mission, by Andrew Johnson, who was a church historian. It's a year-by-year summary of the work in Scandinavia, which included Norway, Sweden, and Finland at one time. It gives the statistics, year by year, how many were baptized, the elders from Zion, where they worked, who was put in jail, the persecution, the political situation. Really good history. And it has names, photos, bios. Really, you can know the atmosphere that your ancestor lived in. There is another book, Under the Midnight Sun. This is more of a narrative. Stories of missionaries, list of the presidents, and statistics and photos. There are copies of these books in our regional library over here. Okay, as I said, the parish and census records are available online, and they are free. You don't have to pay a fee. You don't have to join a Sons of Denmark. Just open them up, and I have the website for you later. And in the parishes, you will find what we call the vital records, birth, marriages, and death, plus a few other perks. The older parish records before 1800, when I say older, that's pretty much the benchmark, before 1800. You will have the birth and or the christening. More importantly to them was the christening date of the child, and it usually was shortly after birth. There were what we call introduction lists. The mothers were considered unclean for about 6 weeks after the birth of a child. There were folklore-type restrictions of what she could or couldn't do, but one of them was she could not go into the church. And then in about 6 weeks, after this purification period, she could be reintroduced to the congregation. These are really good in particularly finding children that died at birth or shortly after. Confirmation. This took place between ages 14 and 18, more or less. Here the child was drilled on his catechism. He received his first communion and is now officially a member of the Lutheran Church, and he received a passport or a good conduct book, which we'll talk about more in just a minute. There are also the list of the betrothal and or the marriage with the dates, and the death and or the burial. In the older records, it's the betrothal and the burial that are recorded more religiously than the death or the marriage. Entrance and exit. These peasants were tied to the land of their birth, the parish of their birth, and could not leave without permission or incur legal wrath. So to leave the parish, they would go to the vicar and have him sign their good conduct book, which had the name, their birth date, confirmation date, vaccination date, and a character summary. He was good in catechism, he was a rascal, things like that, and signed the book. Then he would make a corresponding entrance in the parish record as to the date this person, the name, age, date, when they left, and where they were going. When this person got to the parish destination, he would report to the vicar, who read the book, signed it, and made a corresponding entrance record in his register that this person was there. They could leave on 6-month work contracts if they could earn them or acquire them. Then after 6 months, they would come back to their parish, maybe move on to another. So these entrance-exit records are really good in tracing the people as they begin to get a little more freedom and move around a little bit more. Absolution. If there was a domestic difficulty or a difficulty between neighbors, farmers over livestock or water or boundaries, the vicar would be called to arbitrate, and then once it was settled, it was written up in the parish record and was not supposed to come up again. Vaccination. This was for smallpox, and the populace had to prove that they were vaccinated or had had the disease itself. Now, the parish registers for our peasant ancestors begin in the late 1600s. Although the vicars performed these ordinances, they didn't write them down, except for the landed gentry and the nobility, who had to prove their right to the land and to titles and so forth. These very old registers stayed at the vicar's residence or in the little church and suffered the ravages of time. So we're going to find them fragmented or missing in these early years. The ink can be faded, blurred, smeared, or it can have bled through the paper and make reading very difficult. There's a lot of damage. Water damage from flood and the rain. Rodents feasted on them. You've heard of the church mouse. Well, he thrived. Thatched roofs caught on fire, and pages were torn, perhaps when the books were dropped or handled carelessly. There are abbreviations that you will learn. How they abbreviate farm and farmer and their other occupations. In the Danish alphabet, there are 3 additional letters, the AE, the /O, and the ball A. You'll need to learn to recognize those, and we will look at some Gothic script. And spelling is all over the map in these early registers. In the calendars, they used the Latin feast days. I know they were Lutheran, but they recorded using these Latin feast days, and I will show you a chart and help you know where to find these dates, because you have to then use the table and create our calendar date. Then you're always dealing with the diligence or the lack thereof of the vicar. Some of these, you get the impression that they were very good pastors of their flock, and others, if their records indicate their indifference, the people didn't get much solace or support. Now, before 1814, there are no pre-printed columns in the book. It's just a register, and at the vicar's discretion, or whoever started the book first, the events are cataloged by event. You'll have all of the births, page after page, then the confirmations, after the next pages, a page or 2 of marriages, so forth. Or they could be listed simply chronologically. On this date, you had a birth, the next day a death, the next day a confirmation, the next day an entrance into the parish, a couple more births, several deaths, and you just read them line by line, year by year. But we can do that. Another thing you're dealing with in Scandinavian records is the practice of patronymics. taking the father's first name to create the children's surname. So Hans Jensen will have Peter Hansen as his son and Maren Hansdatter as his daughter. By the mid-19th century, there is no daughter recorded, but Maren Hansen, the same as her brother. By the late 19th century, then children were keeping their father's surname. So Hans Jensen will have Peter Jensen and Maren Jensen. There were laws passed for this, but tradition dies very slowly. So you get mixed names, and you just have to watch and read. Given names. This will drive you crazy, but it's doable. It is manageable. Before the late 19th century, roughly 30 male names and 25 female given names were used in the rural population. So you have repetition, repetition, repetition. So, very early they began to use identifiers. Along with the name and surname, they would give his village, his occupation, parish of origin, age, some physical characteristic, and they are usually consistent. Nothing's 100%, nothing's dyed in wool, except that there will be exceptions. So Hans Jensen, if he's the miller, he's known as Hans Jensen Muller, or simply Hans Muller. Hans Jensen Sunderlem in the village of Southlem in the parish of Lem, as opposed to Hans Jensen Norlem, who lives in the village of Northlem in the parish of Lem. I have an ancestor, Peter Anderson. He is known in the registers as Peter Skilsgård, which was the name of his farm, and Peter Romberg, which is his parish of origin. One thing that's very helpful is women do not or did not change their surname at marriage. Even if they married several times because death was very common, they kept their surname when they were born with. But they're often invisible, meaning this name is never written down, only at their marriage, if you're lucky enough to find it. In a burial record, you will find either the wife, mother, or daughter of Hans Jensen buried. Okay, you have, and maybe there will be an age, but not a name. Everybody knew who she was. Why write her name down? There's very tight tradition for naming children for their grandparents and other family members. So Hans Jensen is going to have a son, Jens Hansen, who will no doubt have a son, Hans Jensen. Multiple children are given the same name. But in Denmark, do not assume that the older child has died. I have 4 instances in my family where there are 2 or more living children with the same given name. Here is an illustration. This is a census. It's a census of 1801, and the head of household, Søren Lausen Beck. Beck is a stream of water. So he either lives by it, or he manages it, or he keeps it clean, something. But that identifies which Søren Lausen of this parish, this family is. Notice he has a 20-year-old daughter, Johanna. She's not married, she is their child. And he also has a 7-year-old daughter, Johanna, their child. So you look for death dates. If you can't find them, do not assume the child died. Going on with the naming situation, in a second marriage, the first child is often named for the deceased spouse. And I'll show you an example. And this is a clue in finding the deceased spouse as well as separating children in a listing in the census. We always like legitimate births. Always the father will be listed first. Sometimes only the father. After 1800, sometimes before. Both parents are listed, and that's a real boon. The father will have the identifier there, and his occupation. He's a farmer. Sometimes he is a tailor or a barrel maker or a shoemaker. And his rank, perhaps he is the manager of the estate, or if he is the vicar, the village priest, or the school teacher, that will be identified. Witnesses, the godparents, as they're called, the first listed or always designated some way is the cap mother. This is the one holding the child. Often this christening took place before the mother is allowed back into the congregation, and this is a distinguished position, a grandmother, an aunt, a dear friend, a foster mother, someone who is close to the family. And these little churches were not heated in any way, so the ice in the baptismal font was very cold. The water was icy, cold at best, but then she was responsible for keeping the child warm and getting his head covered. You know, in a christening outfit that you buy or see, there's always a cap, and that was functional, not just decorative or a part of the outfit. The other witnesses are family or friends, and then you will find hints of where they are and where they are from. Stillborn. Do not assume that the child was not born alive. Double negative to emphasize that if a child was unchristened because of taxation, if the child only lived a few hours, it was declared stillborn. The older parish records, you're only going to find this in the burial because there is no public christening to record. And sometimes it only says child. In the later registers where they are separated, male and female, you will find Hans Jensen's stillborn child. But if he's in the male register section, you know it is a son. But I caution you not to assume that they were born dead or stillborn because it just made it easier on taxation and a lot of hassle because the child was never christened in the church. Illegitimate always bugs us. It will, instead of beginning with the father, the entry will begin with the mother's name and her place of residence. And it will say, illegitimate child of, and they use the term often, magmutter, which means mistress, and it's a title, not a character reference. Maren Peterson, or Piggin, which means girl. She's single. And it will 99% of the time name the father. It may say alleged, or she claims the father is, and it will give him his name, where he's from, the farm he's working on, a lot of good information. And generally, the child will use the father's surname, even though they are not married, the parents. In 1905, by royal decree, allowed certain individuals, and I assume this was by petition or some sort of hereditary right, to change the patronymic surname to a different surname. As I said, these registers were kept in the parish, and when this happened, the current vicar was notified. He went back into his parish records and made the note that on this date in 1905, so-and-so, by royal decree, had his surname changed. So if your Danish ancestor has the surname of perhaps Dambor or Schrader or Yule, you're going to have to know the patronymic name to find your ancestors. But it will be noted in the parish records. Okay, this alphabet that I promised you, the Danish Gothic, the letters are quite different. And if we approach it with an English attitude, you will not understand the word. Look at A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. On Family Search, there are tutorials. And what I recommend you do is print those pages off and trace them and write them and learn them. Look at, and here are the additional three, the AE, the /O, that missionaries usually call the crazy O, and the ball A. Look at the lowercase. This is an A. To us, that looks like a U. It is not closed at the top. Look at the C. Looks like a dotted I. Down here on the next line, both of these letters are the letter F. Practice them, and you'll see the pattern of the letters, whether it comes down to the line or whether it goes straight across, and just practice. Okay, as I said, there is an extensive use of the Latin feast day. Every week, celebrate a Catholic saint or event. I know they're Lutheran, but they used this calendar. 2 days of the year were fixed, as far as I've been able to determine, and that's Christmas and New Year's. Everything else moves with the calendar. For example, we know Easter never falls on a certain day of the year. It's a lunar festival, and it changes. If the vicar writes the word feria, that means it's a weekday of that celebration. Our registers or our computation tables give the Sunday, and that's all you can do is use the Sunday date. That's perfectly fine. So if you see the date, Feria Epiphany 2, that means it's on a weekday during the second week of Epiphany. You will just use the table and pick the Sunday date. If it does say Fest, sometimes it's hard to tell those two words apart. It is the Sunday of that celebration, so you will have Fest Ascencio. Palmarum is any day of Palm Sunday week, but of course you will use the Sunday date. Denmark used the Julian calendar up until the 18th of February, 1700. Then they changed to the Gregorian calendar, and the next day was March 1. So during 1700, the February dates of 19 to 29 or 28, whatever it was, do not exist. And then because you have leap years, so forth, there are, I'll point them out to you in this table, blank days, don't worry about them.
Was that just in the year 1700?
No, 1700 on, from then on. And you're going to find very little in the Julian calendar, so I don't worry about it. Here is the table that you follow. For example, that one day said Ascencio, here it was. In 1750, that was on the 7th of May. 1751, it was the 20th of May. You see these lines up here are blank, no such days. Went from the 18th of January. That week they didn't have the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th weeks of Epiphany. It went straight to this one. Down here you have Palm Sunday. Then this is Thursday. This is Good Friday. You notice 22nd, 26th, 27th, and 29th for Easter. That's why there are more feasts in 1 week than the span of 7 days. Sometimes there is a different date. For example, this in Vukovic is the first Sunday of Lent. So then you're dealing with the weeks of Lent. Okay, in the older records, those before 1800, before the printed columns, It's going to be the christening rather than the birth, and the burial rather than the death. And often just the betrothal, maybe both. So use whatever is recorded. There are some frequent phrases in Danish. This same day, samme day, is the same day as the previous event. If there were 3 children christened on the same day, the vicar will write the date once, and then for the next 2, write same day, or he may get a little bit creative and use the Latin idem day. Ibid or ibidum means the same place. So if on the witnesses, if it lists several people and says ibid, you know they're all from the village where the parents lived. We will get used to reading abbreviations. Ink was a premium and so was paper. So HSEN is Hansen. It's never Hendrickson, it's only Hansen. Hans' daughter is also abbreviated, but the critical one to note is the XIAN or XEN. This stands for Christian, or either way it was spelled. It's the Greek letter chi. We use it in Christmas. It has nothing to do with unknown. Then there will be places also that are abbreviated, and you kind of learn those as you go. In 1814, we did get pre-printed parish registers in columns. This is what you will read in Danish, and this is pretty standard. But the translation, the number of the child that was born that year, 1 through however many, should give the year and the date. Often they only put the year at the top of the page. The child's full name should have the surname. Very few do not. The christening date, this is usually the one in the church, the public one. If he didn't live that long, some vicars record both. The midwife was authorized to christen the child if she thought it might not live. Okay, then the parent's name, their rank. Is he the school teacher? Is he the manager? His occupation, is he a farmer? Is he also the barrel maker? And the village. This is very important. The witnesses, the cat mother, and then there is an index which is of absolute no use to us because it doesn't correspond with the pages and they're missing and takes a lot of room in the registers, but it doesn't mean anything. Over here under remarks, you may have the date the mother was admitted to church. You may have died if the child did not live. Confirmation. The name and residence. This is so critical to keep these families in their correct villages. Name of the parents or head of household or foster parents. Some of these children were raised by relatives. Some were wards of the parish and just raised in foster homes. So it will so name. The child's age. And what's not translated here is the birth date. Generally, there is the birth date, which if your parish record is fragmented or damaged or difficult to read, this is a real boon to find the birth date recorded. Then the evaluation of his knowledge and behavior, which would have been recorded in his passport, and the vaccination, and then the index, which does us no good. On marriages, first column will be the groom. His name, his age, where he's living, his parish. Then the bride, her name, parish, if she has an occupation, if she's a weaver or something. Then the sponsors, there will be 2, his sponsor and her sponsor. Maybe relatives, that's really nice. Then the marriage date and where performed, which is usually in the church. Under remarks, vaccination. then with dead, the death date, the burial date, the deceased's first and surname, also maybe an identifier, then where he lives, his age, the index, and under remarks you can find valuable things. Sometimes it just says died of old age. But there are some parish, say the diligence of the vicar, some will write their birth parish, like born in this parish or born in such and such a parish, and even name the father. And this is not just on children, but on older adults. And that's really nice. Okay, we're going to leave the PowerPoint for a minute and look at some of the parish registers themselves. Okay. When you put in the address for the archive, this is what comes up. Archive, the archive, the ER is the archive online for Denmark. This red line across here tells us that on February 19th, there's going to be a new update. I have no idea what that means. But it gives you a few days to start playing, and I'm sure the format will be compatible. If you can do this one, you will lead right into what format that is. Over here on the left are some words that I don't pay much attention to, other than it says you want to go to the parish or to the census. So, oh no, I'm going to back up. Because I set this up to go straight into the parish. Here on this top line is the amt or the county, and you must know that. But there is a list. These are all of the counties in Denmark. Down at the bottom are the three with the additional letters. They're not mixed in with the A's and the O's. They are at the end of the alphabet. So we are indeed going to the county of Viborg, and we have selected the parish of Vinderslev. Here are all of the parishes in Viborg, a whole lot of them. And as I said, you must know the parish, because you can't say my grandfather came from Copenhagen and get anywhere, because there are at least 17 parishes in the Copenhagen area. So we are here in Vinderslev. I'm going to go into the parish record of, these are the dates. Let me see if I can move that up just a little bit. Go down to 1970, starting in 1736. Over here on the left are the letters that correspond with these letters. And the X tells you that that parish has that register. F stands for birth, then you have confirm, you have marriage, death. This is the register that does us no good. This is the exit register, and this is the entrance list. Okay, so we have the parish, the district. I don't bother to learn those. Because you don't need to. The amt is Viborg. The parish is, the text is what that is. And this first one goes from 1736 to 1774. It has birth, confirmation, marriage, and death. But don't let the dates fool you. The births might not start until 1745. The earliest thing in this register is possibly 1736. The oldest thing is 1774, but the deaths may end on 1770. Down here in 1771, there is a little overlap here you can see. They did try to do that. 2 parishes were managed by the same vicar. Okay, we're going to go into 1832 because if you had a great-grandparent join the church, very likely he was born in this era. You need to have the program Java to drive the registers. I don't know why, but you do. Set. All right. Over here on the far left are all of the images for this parish from 1832 to 1847. These are images. I call them pages. That's my mindset. But if you're talking to a Danish researcher, someone in Denmark, and you call it page, they won't know what you're talking about. This is your reference up here. This references the parish, and this is the year. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I'm going to open here at, this is the magnification. I'm going to reduce it just a little bit so I can show you this page. I don't use these. I can. They are how you change from page to page. How out of habit, I don't. Okay, this is what's in this book. And you have birth, male, beginning page 1. But see, it doesn't. Not corresponding number over here. It's going to be at least 6. The birth of females begins on 53 in the old parish record, so it's going to be down here ways. And you have the stillborn male, stillborn female, confirmation of boys, confirmation of girls, marriage, entrance, exit, death of men, death of females, and this register. Okay, we are going to go down for an illustration on page or image 49. Now you'll notice up at the top it is added a little bit more information. That references what I call page 49. This is what you will put as your source for the information that you are recording. Okay, up here at the top you have the number. This is child number 13. Then we have a change of year to 1846, and this is child number 1. All right, the date of his birth, the child's full name, and his parents. And this is a 2-page register, a big book. So we slide over here to the public christening, and then the godparents. And here is the date the mother was introduced. Okay, let's go back and see what this says. Child number 2. He was born on the 18th of January in 1846. His name is Jørgen Jensen. His father is farmer Jens Madsen. Notice the patronymics. Whose wife is Marianne Jorgen's daughter, and they live in Voer, V-O-E-R. That is their village in Vinderslev. Okay, sliding over. This is the date he was christened in church. Remember, he was born in January, but the christening took place on the 5th of April. In the witnesses, you have, I don't know what this first word is, but this says pensioner, and that means he's old, he's retired, he's living on the benefit of his family, or is a ward of the parish, helped by charity. But he's pensioner, Jørgen Jensen's wife of Vo. Okay, big clue. His mother's name is Marianne Jorgen's daughter. This is no doubt her mother who is carrying the child. But notice it doesn't give her name. It says she is pensioner Jorgen Jensen's wife of Ro. Same village that the parents and children are living in, but it doesn't give her name. That's what I mean by invisible in the record. Okay, then it goes on to say that the other witnesses are farmer's wife, Annie Christian Niels' daughter, of this place in Torning Parish. Of Torning Parish, is she living there and coming to this christening, or was she born in that parish and came here? That's not critical to my information for this family, but it might be for yours. Okay, then we have Farmer Nielsen of Krarup and Martin Madsen of someplace else. Notice this child died. He didn't get a public christening. And this is the date the mother was reintroduced to the parish. This one, let's look for just a minute at this next child. Peter Anderson Skousen. He was born the 21st of January. He was christened the 7th of February at home. He didn't have a public christening, so there is no list of godparents for that child. Okay, let's look on image 51. And, yes, child number 10. He's born on the 5th of June, and the year is 1876. Okay. The 5th of June, and he is Søren Christian Christensen. His father is Farmer Christian Jacobsen. But what is revealing to us is on the 21st of November in 1905, by royal decree, his surname is changed. He is now Søren Christensen Hede. So if your family name is Hede, here's where you're going to find your patronymics and your grandparents. All right. Now we're into the girls. Okay. On the 5th of April, in about 34, because they listed all the boys and then they started on the girls. Okay, we have Annie Marie Jensdottir, and her father is not a farmer, he is a day laborer. He works where he can get work. And he is Jensen, hence she is Jensdottir. And here is her mother. And notice he is from Lemming. He was not born in this parish of Vinderslev. He is from Lemming. So you know where to find his birth. Okay, and now we'll look on image 72 to this little girl at the bottom. This column right here is for legitimate or illegitimate. This little girl is illegitimate, born on the 10th of May. She is Annie Mikkelsen. Her mother, the godmother, the mistress, Maren Jensdottir, where she is from, and her father is Bachelor Mikkelsen, and they are both of Vinderslev. She is using her father's either patronymic or his surname at this point. Okay, now we're going to go down. When you are selecting these images to open, you can do about 5 at a time before it kind of blows the mind of the internet, and you get a black mark instead of a green one. So on 109, we have the confirmation list. First one, so I say the confirmant's name and where he lives. So we have Christian Christensen of Fredland Hus. And his father is farmer Christian Christensen. Here is his mother, Meta Marie Christiansdottir. That is her maiden name. It's not feminized surname of her husband. And he lives at home because that's where they live. Over here, he's 14 or the 4th years old, and he was born on the 11th of January, 1818. Maybe 1818, parish record doesn't exist, and you are really giggling. Okay, here is his behavior, and his knowledge is good. And on the 20th of October, 1819, when he was 2 years old, he was vaccinated. Good information here. Okay, let's go down to 137. This is marriage. I will open a couple more to facilitate here. Okay, marriage. Here in 1832, we have Bachelor Anders Peterson of Vestergaard. He's 28 3/4 years old, and he is a farmer. He is going to marry the girl, Johanna Sorensdottir. She is 18 years old, and she also lives in Vinderslev. There's the parish of that name, and there will be a village of that name, in addition to other villages, and maybe even a farm. This column that's nearly cut off is their betrothal date, the 31st of May. And then over here, you have the two witnesses, farmer Soren Madsen, Vinderslev, and farmer Peter Christensen of Vestergaard. So the young man works for him. And this is the date they were married, the 10th of July, 1832, and they were married in the church. Over here is their vaccination proof. Okay, 151. This is an entrance register. We have here in 1832, and these shifting took place in April and November. We usually contract to work for 6 months for a farmer. If it was good, they could continue. If they wanted to move on, if the opportunity came, they could. But those are the shifting months, so they'll pretty much be dated in either November or April. We have Kjeld Christensen and Elsa Christiansdottir. He's 51, she's 54. It's a farmer and his wife. They are coming into the parish, and they are coming from Turning Parish, and they came on the 18th of April in 1832. So you know they did not grow up in this parish. You may find them dead there, but they didn't grow up there. Now this is an exit list. This first little guy is Hans Christensen. He is 14 years old. He's going out as a farmhand. And he is going to, I can't read it very well, but that's where he is going. And this group all left on the 18th of November. One more in this parish, we're going to look at the death. Okay, the number in that year that died, and the date they died, the date they were buried, the name, and over here, he's the son of farmer Niels Anderson of Mousing, and he is 10 years old. Down here, remember the 21st of October, buried on the 28th, is Jorgen Hansen. Come over here, and he is simply a pensioner. He's retired, he's an old man of Mousing, and he is 68 and a fourth years old. Okay, any questions? All right, we will look. There's one more parish record that I want to look at in this is there are two parishes in this book. So what I do, every time I go into a parish, I take notes. And I will write down the name of the parish, the years it covers, and the pages. This has birth from page 1 to 52. Introductions start on 53 to 79, then the confirmations. So if I ever go back into this parish, and I usually do, because my family lived in this certain area, and I need to find a death, I don't have to do hunt and peck. I can go to the area that shows me the death. Oh, okay, I thought I did. We're going to go down to page 423. See, this is a different number up there. It's still a parish, but it's a different set of years. And I know by past experience that the parish I want is on the bottom half, or the last half of the register. Okay. Here is where, no columns in this one, it's an older book, the year 1791. And on the 23rd of January was buried Jens Petersen Hoy. There is his identifier of Haga, and he is 81 years old. Now this date is the Latin date. You're going to need to convert that to a date that we can read. Was buried Knut Petersen's son Niels of Venderslav, and he is 9 years old. Then we have, oh, this is a hoot. On the 23rd of March was buried Old Maren Madstatter. To identify, and she's from Mousing, and she's 81 years old. Everyone probably referred to her as Old Maren. Old Maren. And so there she is. Now here it says the same day. So the same day that Maren was buried was also Christian Andersen's son, Anders of Peterstrup, and he was nearly 2 years old. Okay, we're going to minimize that and bring the where is right here? No. Yes, I'm trying to get back to that one? Okay, that's going to get me to the archive. Oh, that one. Oh, not quite. The PowerPoint that we had. Where's that one?
Down on.
Oh, this one. Ooh, helps when you know what you're doing. My mother always said. From the current slide. Ah, yes. Okay, now we're going to look at some census records. The first census ever taken was in 1769. Very few exist, and it won't do you much good. It's about like the one of 1771, where it lists the head of household, male or female if it's a widow that's the head of household, but it does not give the age of the head of household, nor does it list any spouse. But it will give the names and ages of children. But it is not transcribed. It's very hard to read, and very few exist. But the bonus to us is transcribed and available on the internet. And unfortunately, some of these have been destroyed over the years, but this is pretty complete. In 1787, the census gave the name, age, married and single, the occupation, whether he was a farmer, a pensioner, a tailor, whatever, but the spelling is all over the map. It's very arbitrary. About 13 years later, they did another census. It has the same information. Unfortunately, they didn't do another census for 33 years. This is really brutal because you can get a single person in 01, and by 34, they are old and their children are married and gone. Sometimes it's consistent and you can piece together these families, but this is, or you can have a person be born and married and die in between census. But the spelling is more uniform. 1840 gives the same information, but in 1845, they added the birth parish, which is a real boon because people are moving more freely now. Again, you must know the county or the amt. The selections, I will show you, are listed for you. You don't have to guess at spelling or remember them, just select them. But you must know, and you must type in the parish, or what's known in Danish as the son, and the spelling is very variable. And you search one census year at a time. You can't search the 87, 01, and 34 at the same time. So, to help us with this spelling jumble, there are wild cards that replace letters. To use the underscore, you can replace a single letter. If your ancestor's name is Jorgen and you type in Jorgen, you will not find him. But if you do J underscore RGEN, there he is. You can use the percent sign to replace multiple letters. And you can do it with as little as 2. So you type LA percent, and you will get all of the variation of Lars, Laritz, Laritsen, Larsdottir, Lausdottir, that there are, the way it's written in the parish that year. I don't know if there were several enumerators or if just whoever spelled. Some of the spelling variations that you will have to deal with is in the older census, they put Jens daughter, capital D, 2 words. So if you write Jens daughter, 1 word, it won't find it. But if you write Jens and percent, you will. Some vicars use the crazy O instead of the EN, and I don't know why. But if you type in Pedersen, which is a very common name, and the vicar happened to spell it crazy O-N, you won't find him, so use the percent. Mikkel. Several ways to spell. And it can be several ways in the same parish register. So you can't go look at the register and say, this is the way they spell that name. Kirsten, sometimes with a J, sometimes with an IE. Anna, pronounced the same but spelled 4 different ways. Margrethe can be without the R first R and with a TH, or maybe everyone called her Greta, so that's what the enumerator wrote down. All right, when you pull one up, here is what you will find. All persons in the household, and we're in Vibor, that's the amt, the district, the village, the parish, and this seems a little redundant because this also says, yes, he's in the village of Winterslev. And it's family number 5. So we have Peter Danielson. He, by the way, is one of my ancestors who has 2 brothers named Peter Daniels. And they all lived to be adults and had families. Okay, this Peter is 33. He is the head of household. He is a farmer. His wife is Dorothy Jenstarter, age 26. She is the mother, the mistress of the house. Now look at the children and the description, fortunately, that he gave. Because you look at this, young couple and their children, fine. But notice, for Annie Maria, age 8, it says, of the first marriage. Of the first marriage. Of the first marriage. Of this marriage. Or last marriage. Okay. Now you look at their names, their surnames, and you can conclude or start to look for them as his children. Not hers, but his. But yet you have little Jens down here, who is their child. So you know because of the range of ages and years, where to look for a death of the first wife. This is an old man. He's a widower, and he is there being supported by charity from the parish. This woman is living in the same household with her children. She's 38. She is a widow. And the woman, her child, her 2 children, ages 6 and 8, and she begs for her bread. She finds work where she can. All right, in 1801, we have Jorgen Jensen, who is 38, who is the head of household. He, too, is a tenant farmer, is what he is. Maren Sorensdottir, age 40, his wife. Kirstina and Maren, 2 children, 8 and 7. Her child of a first marriage. Her child of a first marriage. And then we have their child. All right, she is a widow who married him. Her husband's first name was Peter, because that's what her daughter's last names are. And notice, their child is named Peter in honor of her first husband. So you know who to look for and an age range of death and marriage. I think he was like 34 when he died or something. And these Tinderfolk, they are farmhands. Milkmaid, she may work in the house or whatever. All right. Oh, this was a boon when I found it. The census of 1787, which is very old, we have Peter Jensen, 27. He is not married, but he's running the farm. And he has old folks, Jens Peterson, who is 71. He is married, and he is the farmer's father. And Kirsten Sorensdottir, 66, who is the farmer's mother. There's no way you're going to find these 2 people in parish records. They were born before the parish records begin, and as they were married before, but you have another generation. And these are farmhands. Okay. 1840, basically the same thing. There is another family living with them. I happen to know that this is the farmer's wife. Notice it's got an identifier on him. And 45, they add the birth parish. If it says in sonnet, it means in the parish. Et means the, in the parish. And then they kindly added in Winterslov, Vibor. So this family, all there together with the grandparents, even the milkmaid, were born in Winterslov. This one, Canute, he is a farmhand, but if he marries and stays in this parish and he's your ancestor, you will be very glad to know where he was born. Okay, let's diminish this, and we will, oh, that didn't work. There. We will go to the all right. This is the Danish demographic database, which are your census records. My research is quite narrow. If it doesn't apply to my family, I haven't taken time to explore it. Probate index, I haven't done. Immigrants, this is a listing after my ancestors came with the early church, so I don't know about that. I don't have anyone from St. Croix. I am interested in the census records. Come over here. I want to do the advanced search. Okay, so I will type in the name of the individual that I want to research. And you don't have to worry about uppercase, lowercase here. I'm going to use the percent. Here are the counties, and you can select the county where they lived, but you must type in the parish. Here is where spelling can be arbitrary, and where you will really make use of the percent sign. Okay, we're going to go right back to Winterslov and 1787. Ooh, it's almost too wide. It says you can select sex. I find it does better if you don't bother that, because it's going to pull up everybody, but that seems to interfere with its searching at times. So you rarely bother with that. Okay, so it is going to come up with this little index of everyone who fits the Peter DA percent sign, and it happens to be my three brothers. Okay, it gives his name, his age, and that he is unmarried. The census year, this is where he lives. He lives in the village. He is household number 9. And what you want to do is show the household, which will bring up the page that I showed you before. Okay. This is Peter. He is the youngest one still at home. And this is his brother Neil and his parents. Okay. We'll go back to the search for and make a change. We're going to I'm going to type in Jorgen. I'm going to go to 1834, same parish. It's having to do a little more work, so it's thinking. All right. It's going to pull up everyone with Jorgen in it. So we start with Christian Jorgensen. He's male, 27, and he's unmarried. He's their child. You could assume he's living at home. Christian Jorgensen, 83. He's a widower. So if you know more or less an age, then you can. Now here's Henrik. Now we've changed to the first name of Jorgen. He's 71. He is retired. He lives in Mousing on a farm. He's 2. He's unmarried. He is their child. So you can find, if you're looking for a child, you don't want to go to the old man. Okay, Marianne's Jen's daughter, 16. She is unmarried. Their child. You can look at the household and find. He's got quite an operation going there. It's a big farm. Okay. I can put in LA and the percent. All right, we're going to get Larson, Larsdottir. Look at the variety LARS, LAURS. So if the vicar spelled it one way and you put it in, might not find her. But if you do a little bit broader search, I found that to be very successful. Okay, do you have any questions, comments? Wait. Okay, we'll just minimize that and go back to my, where can I find it? Here it is, the PowerPoint. And, oh yes, okay, from the current slide, yes. These folks have a website. I have found some wonderful primers from them on how to do research, a little bit of the history of what was going on, what caused this, the wars, and the politics and divisions of counties. The books that I have, which show the feast day calendars, I was told was out of print. I don't know if it is or not. But these guys still have a current website and telephone number, and these books are in the library. Okay, the history, the Scandinavian mission under the midnight sun. And if you track me down, I can give you local archive addresses, but my book is so old it was before emails even existed. What you are interested in are these two websites here, the archive online and the demographic database, which is the census. This first one right here is their map archive, and I have maps with my great-great-grandfather's names written on them, which is really heady. Another thing you will find helpful is this page where you can hold down the Alt key and on the keypad of your keyboard, type in these numbers and create these special characters. So you hold down the Alt, type 0198, lift up your hands, and you will have a capital AE, or the 0230, and it's the lowercase ae. These are ASCII characters, I believe, and are quite, it's where you make smiley faces and such on. Okay, any other questions or comments? I want you to be encouraged and excited about this. Sometimes I wonder why I ever got started torturing myself, and then I will find a nugget, just a gem, and I know why, and you will too. Thank you. Oh. If you want to change your keyboard to Danish, you can do that.
Center may still have some of these handouts, which goes through all this and has it all written down. But if you want to change your keyboard over so that you have extra languages on the keyboard, this is the method that you use. Go one more page, and then you switch it around. One more.
No.
But there, in the handout, there is a key